Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. I'm so excited you're here because today we're taking a deep dive, a really fascinating journey straight into the architecture of the human mind. We're going to completely demystify the deep, unseen structures that make us, well, us. You know, if you've ever wondered why you do the things you do, or why random thoughts just kind of bubble up out of nowhere, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to systematically break down Sigmund Freud's concepts of psychosexual development, looking specifically at the deeply layered structures of consciousness and the distinct agencies operating inside them.
So here's a question for you. Are you fully in control of your own mind? It's a pretty provocative thought, right? I mean, most of us just go through our days assuming our conscious decisions are entirely our own. We like to think we're the absolute masters of our psychological domain. But the material we're unpacking today sets up a wildly different premise. It actually argues that unseen, deeply layered structures dictate a massive chunk of our behavior. The mind is just so much bigger than our waking thoughts, and honestly, a lot of the heavy lifting is happening entirely behind the scenes.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. First up, we're mapping human awareness, then looking at the conscious mind, the subconscious sensor, and the unconscious depths. After that, we'll hit the systems of personality, and finally, the primal id. Let's get right to it.
Part 1. Mapping Human Awareness and the Conscious Mind.
We're starting at the very top level of awareness. This is that familiar space where our everyday logic lives. The conscious mind is regulated by what's called the reality principle, which basically just means it relies on logic and control. It's the part of you that knows, hey, I need to wait in line to buy my coffee, instead of just grabbing it right out of the barista's hands. It controls what's easily remembered and immediately available to you. You know, stuff like your phone number or what you had for breakfast this morning.
And that brings us to a really stark contrast. On one side, you've got the conscious mind, logical, controlled, totally operating on reality. But then, on the absolute opposite end of the spectrum, you have the unconscious mind. We'll explore that fully in a second, but man, the differences are night and day. The unconscious is not logical at all. It's filled with repressed material, and it completely throws reality out the window in favor of something called the pleasure principle. And the crazy part? Both of these extreme opposites are existing simultaneously inside the exact same human brain.
Part 2. The Subconscious Sensor.
So, to understand how these two extremes coexist without literally tearing us apart, think of this preconscious level as the middleman. Or actually, it's more like a nightclub bouncer. The subconscious has this incredibly active, complex job. First off, it holds experiences, thoughts, and desires that aren't in your immediate awareness right now, but you could easily recall them if you needed to. But it's definitely not just a passive storage locker. It's an active bridge and a fiercely protective guard. It actively represses unpleasant thoughts or feelings, examining and censoring certain wishes before they can crash into your logical, conscious reality. Basically, it's keeping the peace.
Part 3. The unconscious depths. Okay, so we've bypassed the logical surface, we've slipped past the sensor, and now we have arrived in the basement. This entire hidden realm is packed full of repressed memories, feelings, thoughts, and wishes. And here's the kicker. It is completely unavailable to the conscious mind. You can't just choose to remember or access this stuff using logic. Why? Because this level of awareness isn't logical at all. It is entirely governed by seeking pleasure and reducing tension, just locking away anything that the conscious mind simply can't handle.
And the stakes for keeping all of this hidden? They are remarkably high. The source material issues a very clear warning about this deep, inaccessible layer. If these repressed memories or thoughts are made prematurely conscious, it causes immense anxiety, like overwhelming anxiety. This actually perfectly explains why that subconscious sensor we just talked about works so incredibly hard. If the vault gets open too early or without the proper psychological readiness, that resulting flood of illogical repressed material completely overloads our logical surface.
Part 4. Systems of Personality.
Let's transition from the stage itself to the active participants living inside it. There are three specific systems of personality: the id, the ego, and the superego. Now, these three psychological processes follow entirely different operating principles from one another. Sounds like a total recipe for chaos, right? Well, the big takeaway here is that in a mature, well-adjusted personality, these three agencies don't just fight each other, they actually work together as a cohesive team. And the leader of that team? That's the ego. The ego acts as the manager, taking all the extreme demands of the other systems and keeping you adjusted and functioning in the real world.
Part 5. The Primal I.
We're going to zoom in specifically on the most demanding, relentless actor on this entire psychological stage. The id is the foundation of the whole thing. It's the absolute source of all our drives, and it is present right from birth. While the other agencies of the mind develop a bit later as we interact with the world, the id is the only system operating from the exact second we are born. It is pure, raw, unfiltered instinct. Honestly, if you want to know what pure id looks like, just picture a screaming toddler on an airplane demanding a toy right now. That is the id in action.
So the absolutely crucial point here is understanding exactly how the id operates. And it operates exclusively by the pleasure principle. Earlier we mentioned that the conscious mind uses the reality principle, right? Logic and control. But the id, and that unconscious level it thrives in, are governed entirely by the pleasure principle. This is purely about seeking immediate tension reduction. There's no logic here, zero patience, and absolutely no regard for reality or social norms, just an immediate, burning demand for relief.
Let's quickly walk through this relentless biological three-step engine. Step 1, the id experiences an uncomfortable state. And let me tell you, it absolutely cannot tolerate discomfort. So it immediately jumps to step 2, it aggressively seeks to discharge that tension. It doesn't matter how it gets done, the tension just has to go. And then step 3, the tension is finally discharged, allowing the system to return to a more comfortable, constant level of energy. But this cycle, it's endless. It's a continuous, looping narrative of experiencing discomfort, demanding a release, and finding equilibrium, over and over again, driving us right from the deepest levels of our unconscious.
Which brings us to a final, incredibly important thought to leave you with today. We've seen just how vast the hidden mind is. We've seen how the subconscious censors our deepest thoughts, and how that relentless primal id has been demanding immediate tension reduction since the literal day you were born. So I have to ask you this. If that primal id is driving you from beneath the surface, how well is your conscious ego leading the team today? Are the systems in your personality working together in mature harmony, or is there a massive power struggle happening right beneath your conscious awareness? It's a really fascinating lens through which to view human behavior. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.